I mean,
Yes or no?
Michael, why not just?
Oh, he's not going to answer. Now he's going to run. Now he's going to sit there and be quiet. Good boy.
No, I'm not. He was going to talk.
Why not?
So I'll respond.
Why not just, Michael? Right? Just why not just switch up the claim a little bit and say by common definitions, right, or common conceptions, right? And at that point, when Vade wants to say, well, why I'm going to reject that God has agency, he's going to have to come up with an argument for that. Like God's like.
I'm not rejecting anything. I'm making no positive claims. You are making the positive argument. I am looking for substantiation on your positive claim. That's all.
And I tried to render an argument, but you just kept whining. Do you want to shut up long enough?
Yeah, no, give me your first premise. Give me the first premise.
I already gave it to you.
I think. Wait, Michael. I think Cam. Wait, Michael. I think Cam's right in the way
that's
that
Alex,
he's saying.
By the way. That's Alex.
Oh, that's Alex. I'm sorry, Alex.
Yeah,
sorry, Alex.
Yeah. Like it's an easy empirical claim, like to show that most people consider God to be a person, an agent, right? That's a really easy thing to show. Like I think empirically. You can pull up any videos of common debates and classic debates, right?
Right,
and
so
these kind
his
of
argument
change it to like it's we can provide defeaters for the common notions. At that point, when Vade, if you want to say, well, why should I accept that God's an agent? Like those are your own issues, right? Against like the general consensus of what most people think it is.
Yeah, you just want to move the goalposts. That's fine. You can argue dishonestly. You're used to that.
So his argument relies on an appeal to popularity fallacy.
What?
That's not what this is. See, this is the thing. This is the thing. So, Michael, this is what he's trying to do, right?
Cam, sorry.
He's saying, look, you said the word God. Now, you have to disprove this word. And then any proposition that you give that disproves an aspect of some God that somebody's giving you, I'm going to say, well, God doesn't have to have that. Okay,
well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Now you have to disprove the word God, Michael, and then you're going to be like, well, what do you mean by God then? He's going to be like, I'm not meaning anything by God. You have to disprove the word God.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when you ask me what an argument against God is, and then I start to render an argument against what I understand God to be, right? You can't just call into question what God is.
Oh, okay, great. All right. So good. Now you've given me all the information I need to show what a fucking hypocritical piece of shit you are. Okay? So back to intersectionality, you fucking shitbag. I'm just going to say
now we're gonna change
my
the goalpost.
conception of intersectionality is simply by what I fucking define it as. And what I define intersectionality
as, are you doing an internal or an external critique?
Is just commonly what is said to be intersectionality.
Are you doing
and from what I commonly know intersectionality to be,
critique?
there doesn't seem to be any empirical claims that were made. So I don't need to provide any further justification, just how you didn't need to provide any fucking additional justification.
Are you doing an internal or external critique?
You're a hypocritical piece of shit.
Are you doing?
Made you look stupid.
Are you doing?
But go ahead and do the laugh.
Are you doing an internal or
laugh.
external critique? Are you doing an internal or external critique? Vade your mic.
It's an internal critique.
Okay, so then we're working with my conception of God.
Oh fuck!
I'm talking about
if you're going to
just fuck yourself,
I just want to say something stupid.
Way to go!
And say something stupid. The stupid thing that you said was that you didn't need to justify your tautological definition of God.
If you're going to criticize him for using his concept of God, then it is the onus is yours to provide an alternative if you're going to object to it. Or you can't just sit there and bitch about it without providing an alternative.
In the context of intersectionality, I have proposed an alternative. I've proposed an alternative where scientific theories must be justified by empiricism.
Okay, perfect. So we're doing an internal critique. So none of your
is intersectionality
a
scientific theory? I don't think she even put forth as a scientific theory. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, it's put forward as a scientific theory.
Did Brenda put it forth as a scientific theory? Did Brenda put it forth as one? Or is that just how she's using the term and you're doing an internal critique, dumbass?
Do the laugh.
So intersectionality, also referred to as intersectional feminism, is a branch of feminism which identifies how different aspects of social and political discrimination overlap gender. That's a scientific.
So here it is.
Analytical.
I don't know if it's.
So here it is.
That's descriptive.
I don't know if it's science or not. It might be sociology.
It's pseudoscience, right? It has no. It has no.
Like
it's an analytic claim.
I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, you could probably argue it. certainly, because it relies on standpoint theory and standpoint epistemology, and you could argue against standpoint epistemology if you like. Right? You know about standpoint epistemology, right, Vade?
I've never heard the term standpoint epistemology before, no.
Oh dear.
Oh, hey, wait, hold on. Somebody do the laugh. Can somebody do the laugh? Michael? Oh, no laugh on that one.
I don't know why you're going. I don't know why you're going.
Joke's getting stale.
Anyway, if nobody's gonna do the laugh,
no, I might agree with you, Vade, that it doesn't have the proper foundations to be a scientific theory, and that it doesn't. Yeah. It might not end up being like a proper concept, right?
Yeah,
but the problem,
right, good. So
that's still irrelevant to what. That's still irrelevant.
I think it's just
that's still irrelevant to what Brenda's claim.
Well, no, and I'll explain why it's relevant to Brenda's claim, because intersectionalists. They want to claim that this view of racism equals prejudice plus power has predictive value, that it actually predicts that it has scientific value, basically. They're saying that it has scientific value in describing the power structures of society, okay? But it doesn't.
Wait. Describing the power structures and predicting the power structures don't be two different things. If you just describe
it has neither descriptive nor predictive power. It's garbage. It doesn't accurately reflect or describe the actual function of society, nor does it give any actual predictions of what we should expect to see given those conditions being true.
Well, you're saying that there's no example of institutional norms being applied against minorities in a prejudicial way.
I'm saying that the idea that racism equals
prejudice just answer that.
Plus power.
I want to know that.
Yeah, I'm explaining to you because you're making but
listen to what I just said, though, because what you just said, the ideal
there's reasoning behind your question that I have to address.
Listen, whether or not racism means prejudice plus power is irrelevant. That's like not even a discussion, right? That's just what they call it.
Well, that's all I've been talking about this whole time.
I'm not going to argue about it.
Then we have no discussion to have.
No. Because you said it's not based in reality, and what they're saying by racism is prejudice and power.
What I said was stupid. Why didn't you do the laugh? There. Oh, okay. Thanks, Michael. You want to do a laugh too?
You're welcome.
You got to go to the meta because you just made yourself look like a dumbass.
Like, nobody's going to argue about like the utterance, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and argue about whether or not we ought call prejudice plus power racism. That's just a stupid conversation. That's just going to be down to some value judgment of how you prefer to utter a word. I don't care about that.
Yeah, and nothing that you're saying actually carries any meaning.
You said that's what you wanted to argue. And nobody wants to argue. Brenda doesn't want to argue with that. I doubt Brenda just wants to sit here and argue whether or not you should call prejudice plus power racist.
My contention was that no one should accept the definition of racism being prejudice plus power as Brenda was rendering it. No one should accept that.
Why?
Because there's no empirical basis for the claim.
Well, that's just how she's using the claim. There doesn't need to be empirical evidence for how she's using a word.
Well, she can use it however she wants.
Correct, and she is, and you're just whining about
she's using it in a way. It doesn't matter the context. No one should accept that definition of racism under any context.
Why?
Because it doesn't reflect reality.
What does that mean? Wait. So now, for that to be true, let's just make sure. For that to be true, you're saying there's an objective fact of the matter about whether the utterance racism ought to mean prejudice plus power. Do you mean that?
Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, maybe I misunderstood what you're saying, but if you're saying that
there's a fact of the matter about what utterances
shut the fuck up, Jovan. Shut your fucking stupid fucking hole.
If you're a word realist,
so
right? So you're saying something
okay, everybody talk over. Yeah, okay, yeah. Typical fucking modus ponens. Somebody do the laugh. No one. No, there it is. Thank you.
Vade's got to go to the meta. Vade's got to go to the meta.
Vade's got to go to the meta. So that's the new thing. Vade's got to go to the meta. Do the laugh. Yeah. Okay. So if you were listening, somebody do the laugh again.
Back by popular demand.
Yeah. So, Jovan, if what you were asking is if I'm saying that we ought not accept her definition of racism, that's what I am saying.
Why?
Why does he just like ignore every like clarification we try to make and just goes back to using
It
the
just
words
seems
that
like
we
you
tried
keep
to
making up
clarify?
new things. It doesn't seem like you're ever saying the
He
same
didn't understand
consistent thing.
Why ought we?
Well, let Iron explain what I said.
Oh
Then go
dear
ahead.
God.
So generally what they're asking is like, are you a realist about the meaning of words? Like, do you think that there's some kind of objective, correct meaning of a word that people maybe stumble upon having access to and some people don't, right? So in that case,
Yeah, no, I don't.
word,
Yeah, I don't.
right. So that's what they
That's
asked
what
you,
you're
but
arguing
you
for.
affirmed the positive, which is why they cackled like hyenas. But
Yes.
the actual axis to evaluate these words on is something like utility, right? You just say something like the intersectional feminist account of racism has less utility than the colloquial version.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when I said that it doesn't reflect reality, has no empirical value, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing. It's
right.
just
It's like fan fiction.
But you don't want to take
exactly.
that argument, right? Because you
folk
guys argue
psychology.
the exact opposite normally.
It's
You say
folk
that the word,
psychology, and
you
these
say that the
fucking
way we
idiots.
use racism has no utility because we just like are willy nilly with it. We applied racism to all these like tangential things that you guys don't feel racism applies to. I thought thought that we didn't have a good word. So wouldn't it feel like it's more utility to hold it down to something more substantial like prejudice plus power?
Well, I actually
No.
define the one utility that definition of racism does have, and that's to malign white people. That's the only utility that it provides.
But it has no say
Just
on what
whining.
particular race. It just has to say
But
on
no, it does,
prejudice.
and that's what I wanted to discuss when we were talking about like nations. So if you want to say that this definition of racism equals prejudice plus power isn't specifically to attack white people, then the entailment of it, if you take it to its furthermost logical conclusions, is that all nations are racist.
No, that doesn't
No.
follow. And
It
Any
does follow, and I
nation,
can explain
any
how
nation that
how that's the
implements
case. I can
any
explain
nation
that's
that
how the
implements
case.
prejudice through power is racist.
Yeah,
But
so I can
not every
explain it.
nation
I
will
can fucking.
implement
I'm literally
prejudice through
offering
power.
you to provide the explanation to support my claim.
Fade,
You're saying the claim isn't true. You haven't even fucking listened to the supporting evidence.
Fade, I want to expand my comment to include, for instance, maybe a country like, let's say, hypothetically, Zimbabwe, where you had a black majority in power. And I don't know if it's actually true, but let's say that they were in fact prejudiced against the whites in Zimbabwe. Then that would be racism. It would be the black majority exercising racist, enabling racist political policies against the whites. And that's consistent with my use of the term racism.
That's right. But what
What
you
you're
don't
saying
so
is
that's going
racism is
against.
what you
relative.
don't hold on. What you don't understand is that that's just an egregious example. For an intersectionalist that holds to this view of racism, even anything, okay, because you have to understand again, like the one of the foundational concepts of intersectionality is identifying how interlocking systems of power affect those who are most marginalized in society.
Yes.
So it operates tautologically on the view that people are marginalized in society, right? That there's going to be some quiet. Right, yeah.
In Zimbabwe,
right, correct. So be quiet. So the entailment is
no, I want to make a
there
point
is
here.
always going to be some group who's marginalized in society, who are
Not
typically going to
necessarily.
be of a particular racial group.
No,
all right? Because
that's
this is
not
just how
necessary.
statistically this breaks
That's
down.
That's not how it works.
Everybody's got to interrupt. Everybody's got to
Yeah,
interrupt.
I want to make a point here.
So the actual implication is that because
Sorry, go ahead, Brenda.
because racism,
I couldn't hear you because he was just running his mouth.
Because racism, right, can be under this view can be interpreted to be any action by some racial group that involves the systems of government, which affects in any small way some other group that could be interpreted as being marginalized. You can say that any system of government is racist.
This was already explained.
I don't think that's true.
Sorry, Brenda, go ahead. What were you going to say?
But the point I want to make is that the definition of racism I'm using here is race agnostic, and whether or not the majority population has a lot of melanin or very little melanin in their skin is irrelevant. the black majority in Zimbabwe could just as well be racist against the white minorities as the white minority has in the past been racist against the black minorities in the United States, and whites in a black majority culture where they're racially discriminated against could experience intersectional discrimination, based on their minority status. So the definition is race agnostic.
It's not, though. I mean, it is. You're right. It is definitionally race agnostic. In practice, it isn't. In practice, an intersectionalist is always going to apply it to a white group and never choose to apply it to any other group.
Well, that would be an empirical question.
Be quiet. Be quiet now. Be quiet now. I let you fucking talk. Now shut your fucking mouth, you stupid bitch.
Support that with empirical.
We saw that take place in this very server when I brought up China and their treatment of the Uyghurs. And you said that's not racist. Well, it is. And it is no different than the United States discriminating against any fucking group for any reason at all, and you saying that it's racist. So, like, for example,
I'm not,
slaves. Okay, let's take slavery. Okay, so the quality of being a slave. Be quiet. Quiet.
I want to reply to your claim about the Uyghurs.
The quality of being a slave has nothing to do with what race they were. There were white slaves, right? Any race can be a slave. Slavery is race agnostic.
Wait,
okay?
Can somebody put that
in the United States,
the quality of being a slave has nothing to do with your
race. It just happened to be the case that slaves were mostly African Americans. Okay, so we can't say that slavery in the United States was racist, because no one said that these people should be enslaved by virtue of them being African.
Yeah, they actually did.
No, they
actually did.
No,
they certainly
did. The government of the United States never supported slavery as an institution by virtue of them being African. So because that's the case, you can't say that slavery was institutionally racist, because it's race agnostic. And if you want to say that slavery in the United States was not race agnostic, then you cannot say that the oppression that the Uyghurs are suffering under in China is not also racial. You piece of shit.
I don't know exactly why the country, the nation of China, discriminates against the Uyghurs. I think.
Well, why don't you go read about it, dumb fuck?
I think it has to do with their religion and not with their ethnicity.
Has to do with both.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know that ethnicity it really culminates into race or not.
Oh, okay, yeah. So here we go. More fucking garbage.
It might, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's irrelevant.
Yeah,
but
but
the idea that racism in the United States was not racial in nature is just absurd.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's just wrong.
It was simply a byproduct. It was simply a byproduct of market factors. It happened to be the case that West Africans were the least expensive people to enslave. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were West Africans. It had to do with the market pressures.
Because the beliefs and attitudes of the people that were enslaving people of African descent do in fact come into play, and they did in fact very much say
no.
It was in virtue of them being African.
Rationalizations.
No,
yeah, but there was never any institutional view on the government of the United States or otherwise that these people should be enslaved or disenfranchised by virtue of the fact that they were of African descent.
There wasn't much of an institutional laws passed in the United States. The laws in the United States it pretty much permitted slavery, but it didn't create the institutions.
Right. So you can't say that it was institutionally racial just because a particular racial group was affected. Because at the point where we accept your definition as any policy of government that disproportionately affects one race over another as being your basis for whether or not that policy is racist, then all policies of all governments can be interpreted to be racist.
Yeah, that's just absurd.
No, it's not. It's absurd on your view.
We've already explained to you how there's no inference rule, how that doesn't follow. You just don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Unless you want to provide an argument with an inference rule, some premises and implications support it with an inference rule, then we're going to take you to be just
some dumb
talking
shit about inference rules, even though what I said is correct.
Yeah,
and
there's no material
do
implication, dumbass.
Do the fucking laugh.
And now he's going to go to meta because he just got shat on.
I've already given the logical.
You just got shat on. You've not provided an argument. You just keep repeating the same claim.
She just said that's
been
absurd.
Explained
She didn't provide any counterclaim. She just said
try
that's
to keep
absurd.
up, bud.
Oh, I'm way fucking ahead of you. I'm streets ahead of you, you fucking piece of shit.
You fucking piece of shit.
You people are. You really are pieces of shit.
I like to lick my elbow sometimes.
Commies.
Horrible fucking people.
Why can't I stop looking at that GIF, BB?
How are we horrible people, Vade? We're not the ones.
I know, it's like
brown people.
Fucking pieces of shit.
Ben, you're not too bad, man. You're a pretty decent person.
I'm pretty sure that this definition was co-opted by like certain leftist groups after feminists have used it. Like feminists were using definitions like this back in the day, in the heyday and stuff, that like sex with respect to sexism. So this is like is an old argument. This is an old rehashed feminist argument. And I can't believe more people don't object to this bullshit definition.
What's the argument?
I can't believe everybody's just sitting here.
What argument, Shamos?
Uh-oh, Shamos, you got to give premises and say what inference rule you're using.
Well, you said it's a bullshit argument. I just want to know what argument he's talking about.
And then somebody's going to do the last.
Sounds like bullshit.
Presumably, when you try to dictate people's language usage, there's some kind of like underlying appeal to utility or some kind of argument, right? Like that would merit them switching their language usage to the way that you want it to be.
Well, I'm asking for that argument, Ryan. I'm not like saying there's no argument.
Yeah, but that's Shamos isn't giving a positive.
I asked for Shamos to give the argument that he thought was bullshit.
So this is the same position you put me in earlier, is to say why we should not prefer the definition you get.
How dare I ask them to support something they say? I'm such a horrible person.
I know,
man.
you gave me the same case earlier. Right? And it's just as absurd.
In Minecraft.
So it's kind of like you can say anything. You on your view, you can say anything. You can say, I think we should say that blip blop bloop means whippity baboo. And I say, why should I accept that? And then you come back and say, well, what? Give me a reason why you shouldn't accept it.
No, I would have came. No, if you came to me and said, if you came to me and gave that exact example and then said that person gave you a bad argument, I would have been like, well, what bad argument did they give you? And you would freak out.
My point is, no one has given an argument why we should accept that definition of racism.
Then, but the point that I was making, wow, you're so dumb. Someone said the point that was being made was that someone said that there was a bad argument that was
what
made.
I fucking said, dumbass?
You can't register anything anyone else says.
No one has given an argument for why we should accept the definition that racism equals prejudice plus power. Without that
why would
argument,
anybody give an argument for that? Nobody's going to give an argument for that.
That's right. So that's going back to the beginning of this conversation when we were talking about me being a racist. I'm not a fucking racist. Your fucking view of racism is stupid. When it comes to whether or not Western cultures are preferable to me, it's not because they're racist.
I don't like the way you're using that word.
Why are we use definition to mean definition?
Vade, you said that there was no institution.
Again, dumbass, if you can't give an argument for why I should accept your definition, I'm just going to
throw it. Can you give me an argument for why I should accept your definition of definition?
If you can't give an argument for why we should accept your definitions, you might as well be saying blip blop blippity.
Here he goes.
Yeah, blip blop blippity boop. Dude, somebody do the laugh, you fucking retards.
Vade, you said that there was no. You said that
this is all you fucking people have. You're pathetic people. You are pathetic.
Are you done ranting yet? Are you done? Are you done being triggered yet, little flake? Snowflake.
This may appeal. This may appeal to like values and shit, but presumably you don't want to equivocate in the conversation, do you, Vade?
What am I equivocating on?
He's not saying you are.
I'm not saying you are.
Well, I'm not going to answer your question then, because it's not relevant.
What?
Yeah, do the laugh.
Do the laugh. What do you think? How do you think equivocation comes about?
When they don't have an argument, do the laugh. Do the
He's
laugh.
going insane.
That's all, man. That's really bad, man. That's just
Jesus Christ.
not even.
Can I ask why he's so mad?
Why is he? Why does
because
he
he's
keep
a
Do the
saying
laugh,
do
you
the
fucking
laugh?
pieces of shit.
Fucking think of
What
something
is
new. That's
wrong with him?
So Alex was just going to make
See,
the
it's
point.
been
Like, look, if you
gaslighting him,
value,
lying
if you
on him,
value
and
not
slandering his
equivocating in a
character for the last
conversation,
2.5 hours. I
if you
wonder why
value
he's so
actually
mad. I wonder why he's so fucking mad.
if you
I
value
haven't
not
been here.
equivocating in a
That was a
Jesus,
genuine
Fia,
question.
calm down, Fia.
It was a genuine answer. I'm just trying to talk over the stupid nigger.
Whoa!
Hey!
Whoa! Shameless, come on, man.
I'm
So
not
Alex,
racist.
You know
Alex,
better.
all right, everybody calm down. So Alex is just trying to make the ask Vade if you
Alex was
value
just
not
this.
equivocating in
Alex
certain
was
things.
just.
Look,
We're just doing this. We're
because
just doing that, Vade.
it
We're
seems like if you
just.
value having a
Piece
conversation,
of
you value
shit.
understanding your
You're a
interlocutor
piece
and
of
trying to
shit,
get through the
Jovan.
conversation.
You're a piece
You
of
would
shit.
use the
You're a
definitions that
fucking
they
maggot.
insist on using
he's
just to get through the
as well.
conversation and
Okay,
understand the
maggot.
entailments or the concepts they're using.
All right, maggot.
Yeah, but there was no conversation, Jovan. It was the conversation. Brenda was just like, no, what racism means is this. And then it wasn't like they went on to some like get to the meat and bones about some
that's how definitions
issue that has to do with racism. That was the whole discussion, Jovan.
Well, I think the words that Brenda
So it wasn't.
used was
You,
the
I
way
know you
I
want to
use
introduce it as.
racism.
Hold on, I know you
What
want
I
to
think
introduce it as a
racism.
preliminary. Like we just need to check this thing off as preliminary so that we can get the real work done. There was no real work to ever be done. The whole fucking discussion was right there, laid out in its bare form. That was it. There was nothing deeper than that they were ever trying to get to.
No, the discussion was whether or not Vade said that her definition entailed that all countries were racist.
Yeah,
and
that doesn't follow.
We were just showing it right, and we were just the conversation centered around that, Seamus.
Which I've proven conceptually.
You haven't.
So whether or not she uses it as racist is irrelevant.
Do you want me to reiterate what I said? Where the only thing you had to say in response
you
is
don't need
that's
to. You don't
absurd.
need to run
You
the
want me to fucking
non-argument
reiterate it,
again.
you piece of garbage?
You don't need to run the
somebody do the
non-argument
laugh.
again.
Somebody do the laugh.
We don't need you to just repeat yourself. The non-argument.
Yeah, somebody do the laugh. Somebody do the laugh.
Ha ha. Are you happy now, little boy?
I provided an extensive logical construct that proved that your view of racism.
You didn't show
yes,
the entailment.
It results in absurd entailments, like all policies can be interpreted as racist.
Yeah,
because of the auspices
well, you
of the
could
conceptual
interpret
foundations
anything
of
however you
intersectionality.
want. What do you
I've
mean?
already
You can
proven
interpret
it.
any
And
policy
you fucking people can either take the terms that I've given for the argument, right? The concepts that I've expressed, even though you're going to deny that I've done it, right? But I'll do it again for you, you pieces of fucking garbage. And then if you can provide a counter argument, then we can consider it. But no one has provided a counter argument.
Now.
Okay, wait. Let's just be clear here. What are you providing? What do you think you're providing an argument for?
I've provided an argument for why we should not accept the definition of racism equaling prejudice plus power.
Okay.
Do the laugh.
Now, what I'm just wondering is, like, so the fuck what? She's just using the word differently than you.
Yeah, great. So
using the word differently than like every fucking.
Now, anytime that Brenda uses the term racism,
we can say, Brenda, that's actually quite a popular use of the term.
Brenda, we don't care what you have to say because your view on race is fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a proprietary definition. It's not like she's pulling this out of her ass. In fact, it's used quite a bit in academic.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, it's not like Brenda woke up the other day.
Liberal arts.
Do I want to find racism? Prejudice plus power. No, she looked up somewhere. She heard it somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right. Shamos correctly explained where the provenance of this concept is. It's from feminism.
That's just how she's using the term.
Feminism came up with intersectionality to describe the gender imbalance in society, and some fucking dumb fuck liberal arts retard applied it to race.
Why would that matter?
You know how we
You're
words
literally arguing over that.
You know, literally means figuratively, right?
It matters because Vade is saying that people use it because they're motivated by an anti-white animus, right? So it'd be like saying, like, why can't you call people ethnic slurs, right? The word just means whatever you want. And then you'd say something like, well, you can't say the N-word because the N-word has this history.
Well, look, I could just attribute some ad hoc just so story to the opponents who don't use race in that. People don't want to use race that way because they want to preserve their social. They want to preserve their social.
Did you catch that line of fucking garbage he let in? I could just provide some ad hoc blah 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 blah, just to completely ignore everything Ken just said.
Hang on.
Doesn't mean that it's not an
been
inadequate refutation of your shitty position.
Even if this had been used like on feminism in the past, right? On feminist positions in the past, right? What's the issue, right? Because the idea is that like these are institutionalized prejudices, right? And we've had institutionalized prejudices against women.
Which no fucking intersectionalist has ever provided an argument for why we should accept their view of institutional prejudices. Oh, there's the laugh. I knew I could get a laugh. Great, do the laugh again, dumbass.
I've been at work with my mic muted. I laugh.
Oh, great, dumbass. Do the laugh again.
Yeah, it's funny.
I want to hear. I want to hear Josh
that's
talk.
the thing, Josh. Is it doesn't matter where you've been.
How
The
many
laugh
times
is
have
the
you said
universal
dumbass
effect of this
today?
server.
No one's ever provided an argument. Why did you say
They're
that?
unmuting at work now to laugh. Shit is
Do
ridiculous.
the laugh, guys.
I just left work, Seamus. What are you talking about? It's 5 o'clock. What the fuck are you talking about?
It's 4:58, motherfucker. You're still on the clock.
I'm also on salary, and I have a really lax job. So.
Well, what the fuck are you doing going home at all then?
Not like this.
What the fuck are you doing going home at all then if you're on salary?
What?
You're gonna right to work state?
Drinking every time he says "do the laugh."
So, Josh, what do you think about this conversation?
Well, I don't know about the conversation, but I just think they had made this claim like no one's ever made an argument in defense of using the term that way. It's just fucking.
Yeah, and no one here. I mean, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say anybody in the whole world. I mean, nobody in this server has given an argument for why we should accept this definition of racism.
It's an evil definition, and it's got bad motives.
I'll give you like one reason they might have.
Josh is sitting here thinking he's all smart, like, motherfucker, definitions aren't evil.
I'll give you one reason they might have. Like, you guys always say that their definition of racism, the way we use racism today, like, just so diluted and it doesn't mean anything and blah, blah, blah. So they're trying to give a solid definition, a solid translation to the word. And like,
Yeah, that would be all well and dandy. But the thing is like when they use it in a way that seems to have some utility, if you try to apply that same utilitarian view to other races, they will never accept it.
Well, that'd be a hypocrisy, or you could just, but that's not.
Yeah, it's a
hypocrisy. That's not.
And it shows that
that's not you not accepting their use.
It shows two things.
That's not you not accepting the use, though, Vade. That's you saying the use is
it actually illustrates two different things. One, that their reason for applying that definition is motivated by malice. And two, it still belies the fact that that definition has no empirical basis. There is no empirical reason why we should accept that definition as having more utility over any other definition of racism.
You're not going to have an empirical basis for using fucking definitions.
Yeah, what's a pound of racism?
Sure, there would. So, like, on the view of like why people shouldn't use the word nigger.
You don't know what
empirically speaking, you can say empirically speaking, what you can say is that when you use the word nigger, right, that there are going to be some group of people who are emotionally affected in a negative way. Okay, and you can do a study on that, and then you can show things like.
But that's not. Wait. That's not uttering. That's saying why we shouldn't utter the word.
Social consequences, and so there's an empirical claim to be made for why someone should not use the word nigger.
Yeah, but that's not what we were talking about. That was a wait. Stop. That's a different.
No.
Yeah, stop using the N-word, Vade.
Stop it.
What do you mean?
You gotta stop using that word, bud.
Listen,
I'm not using the word. I'm talking about it in the abstract case. If we're talking about the word nigger being used in society.
I'm not using the word. Using the word.
You can say
I'm stopping you. I'm muting you right now.
Vade's gone. Vade's gone. He can't abide by simple.
So let me just finish. Let me just address what Vade said real quick, because he tried to say, "Oh fuck, I just lost it." Never mind. Keep going.
Yeah, it wasn't important.
You were
is why you don't smoke pot.
Jovan, that he was changing the claim from how a definition is useful to whether or not you should use a word.
Right.
That's
That's going to hinge on the definition, though, right? Like if the word meant something innocuous or had like a common usage that was benevolent, then people wouldn't really object to you using it.
You're not objecting to the definition, though. You're just objecting to it being uttered.
Yeah, but I'm saying that doesn't make sense.
If you agree with that, then you're agreeing that he's moving the goalpost, or he's at least his argument doesn't address the issue.
Oh, I don't know about moving the goalpost, but I'm just saying that it wouldn't make sense to try and ban the utterance if the utterance didn't have some kind of negative meaning, right?
How's that relevant?
Like nobody's trying to ban like beep boop because there's no negative meaning associated with it.
What?
They're not saying the N-word shouldn't mean what it means. They're saying that you ought not utter the word in these circumstances.
Yeah, and he's just saying that you shouldn't use racism the way that the intersectionalists use it because it's animated by an anti-white animus, the same way that the N-word is animated by an anti-black animus. So he's just saying, like, given we have some kind of moral axioms about how we shouldn't use words to hurt people or whatever the fuck, we should be consistent with that and not use it in that way in this context.
No, he's not saying we ought not utter it. He's saying we ought not define it like that.
Nobody really, only extremists think you shouldn't utter the word altogether.
No. Nice try.
We just said that he is not allowed to utter the word in here. We just said it.
Yeah, I know,
we
but
just banned him for uttering the word in here.
That's an extreme position, Jovan.
You can get millions. You can get millions of people to say you shouldn't say cunt in front of your grandma. Okay, and that's not an extremist point of view at all.
Iron, do you think you should say cunt in front of your grandma?
I agree there's certain contexts where it's inappropriate, but I'm saying as a blanket rule to never say it ever in any context is an extreme view.
Right, so when you wait, let's just make sure. So Iron,
when I say cunt, I just mean it as lollipops, right? And I just mean it as lollipops, so really no one should have a problem with me saying cunt around my grandma.
Right. Like Iron, when you say you shouldn't say cunt,
when I call people that, I just call them lollipops.
Iron, when you say you shouldn't say cunt in front of your grandma, you're saying you shouldn't define cunt in that way, right? That's what you're saying, right?
It has negative connotations in Western.
From now on, when I hear lollipop, I'm gonna think.
Oi?
You're a dirty birdie, Brenda. You're a dirty birdie.
What if they define it differently, Iron?
From now on, when I
then they just have a minority usage and they're just being punished for being a minority. So there's just like a majority that's exercising violence against them rhetorically.
Lollipop.
Lollipop. That's all I mean when I'm referring to Layla. She's a lollipop.
Well, what Iron said was that no one would object to it if it was something that was irrelevant. That's what he said.
I said people don't object to benign word usage, right? That's correct.
Yeah, but you could use the word cunt to mean lollipop.
Yeah, theoretically, but because the majority doesn't use it that way, you're likely to be punished for doing so, even if you meant well by it.
Even though it's benign word usage.
Even though to you it's an isolated benign word usage.
Just contradicted yourself.
No, I was talking generally, right? When I said benign word usage, I was saying generally, like how language is generally understood. You're just either being uncharitable or pedantic. I'm not really sure which one.
Lollipop, 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 lollipop. Lollipop, lollipop, lollipop. There's that song.
So if I
can be a pedant. You can be a pedant and still be correct, right, Iron? We can still be correct about what we're saying, right? And just saying that we're a pedant doesn't exclude us from being correct here, right? Oh, thank you. So you agree that we're correct. Thank you.
No, but just because you could be correct doesn't mean you are correct, Jovan. Come on, that's elementary.
Well, no, you could be a pedant. You might be like wrong, but I think a pedant is just somebody who's like really concerned about it, right?
Like overly concerned about academic details, but is always just wrong about them.
I wouldn't say always, right? I'm saying he could be wrong about something.
I'm saying that pedantry is typically considered to be rude because people.
But that'd be like tasteless, right?
People generally don't want to comport themselves to like an extreme standard of accuracy.
Tasteless is a pedant that's always wrong.
Pedantry is considered rude. How could you be a pedant at the dinner table?
Yeah, Brenda, you need to mute yourself, darling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I got a new mechanical keyboard. It came just today. The guy delivered it about an hour
She
ago.
wants us to hear.
Yeah, I can hear
So,
which one did you get?
It's great though. I have this old Dell computer keyboard. It's a really old Dell one. And now I moved up into the world of mechanical keyboards. It's great. I can't understand why I never did this before.
Yeah, they're great.
Just typing, guys. Yep, nothing to see here.
They're fantastic. I love the clickety clickety.
Which one did you get?
I got a cheap one. It's a Red Dragon.
Oh, that's a really good one.
You don't play Minecraft with Layla?
It's about $50, which is about average these days for a keyboard.
Well, yeah, that Red Dragon one's a really good one, though, regardless of the price.
Yeah, I could have gotten a little bit cheap. I probably could have gotten a cheaper one for about the same make, about $30-$40 instead. I should have done a little bit more research, but the keyboard that I formerly had crapped out on me, probably because I dripped water on it.
Water, he says.
Water.
Did you get it off Amazon or did you go to like Walmart?
I always buy from Newegg.
Water or semen?
It was, Jesus Christ.
It's always cheaper online.
It was hot. It was condensate from my iced tea. Because I put the iced tea on the shelf above the keyboard. It was hot and humid here. The water condensed off of it and dribbled off the shelf onto the keyboard below it.
Why would you lie?
To the extent that you were jacking off.
I wonder how many women here had to change their keyboards because how sweaty their palms get from hearing my voice.
I don't do that.
Shut the fuck up.
Is that
I don't like touching myself like that.
Anxiety because they're or something?
What'd you say?
Why not? Touching yourself is fun.
I don't particularly care.
Is that anxiety from fear of you being black or something?
No, I was thinking about saying the way in which they're like wet, but I can't like see how that would transfer onto like their keyboard or.
I refuse to believe that Jovan is black. I prefer to think of him as white because he showed me that picture of his hand. It's definitely white.
It was the lighting.
And you would never lie. You would never lie and present yourself as white when you're not. Therefore, you have to be white.
Oh, did I miss? Did I
Look,
miss?
I've actually been
rage
in a
quitting?
video call. I've been in a video call with Jovan, and he's black.
Michael, you have the picture you screenshotted, right?
I'm just memeing.
Yeah,
Get with the program. Come on.
Brendan, it's just. I guess you don't understand. Like, I think you don't understand like photography a lot, Brenda. Like the way lighting works, it can like change the skin color.
No, that's not possible. Skin color is an objective feature. It's an objective feature of your skin.
I guess you haven't seen these Instagram models when they lighten their skin.
Have you ever heard of black and white photographs, Brenda? Yeah, that's a photo of me.
That's you? No way.
That's me.
That's you?
That's me.
Oh, okay.
In
my mind, you were a little bit more handsome than that.
Yeah, you may be a white man, but you gotta.
Tries to make fun of someone.
You might be a white man, but you sound like Ike Turner.
With that nose, I can sniff 12 grams of coke in one go.
Though, but would it not be the
Gus,
same
make
too,
that high-pitched voice you
lighting
do to make fun of me or somebody. Do that high-pitched voice.
Yeah, blow me. How's that sound?
It sounds exactly like fucking Bowl of Milk.
Yeah.
Not really.
Oh wow, Stargate just stopped.
Have you hold on? Have you heard Gus's impression of me with that high-pitched voice? Have you heard it, Bowl of Milk?
I think so.
I doubt it. Fucking. How often do you
Stargate's
guys do
posting my
that?
name in chat and shit, man. It's fucked up.
Ollie?
Oh my god.
Ollie done?
Yeah, they called me Ollie Oxen because I played football.
Perhaps it's just the lighting in that photo.
Jess, what you up to, man?
Oh, you know.
Ace Combat. That's what he likes playing these days.
Wait, he didn't even say anything. He just said, "Oh, you know," and didn't even follow it up with anything.
Hey, Thomas.
Well, I tried to follow it up, but Kake knew better than I what the fuck I was doing, apparently.
Cack?
Kake.
I love me
Kake.
some Ace Combat.
Cack. I'm calling him that now.
Ace Combat's good.
So, Thomas, how have you been, bud?
Oh no, here it
Nobody
comes.
fucking wants to know how I've been doing. All right, fuck all y'all now.
I've been doing great, Cack. Wow.
Whenever I ask you, you say you don't care.
I don't care what.
Oh.
I say, how you doing, Gus? And then you say, what do you care?
Well, you don't fucking care, Tom. I'm just fucking grist for the mill up in this bitch, as far as you're concerned. Oh, I'm a bit disappointed that I didn't show up just in time to see more of the all fucking Vade meltdown extravaganza. But I suppose the next one will be along soon.
Oh, he'll be back.
I love
He
Vade.
didn't miss anything.
I don't get why you guys
Gosh,
hate
no,
Vade.
don't say that.
I like Vade. I like listening to him talk.
Shh, he can hear you.
Thomas, don't say that.
I know you don't understand me, BB, but we'll fix that in time.
Don't understand what y'all's issue with Vade is.
Oh,
Because
you're fucking stupid.
Oh my god.
Because you're a fucking maggotous mass.
A maggotous.
Well, my issue was that he kept saying the N-word.
Repeatedly.
Even
as an
He
example
kept calling people maggots. It was so funny.
even then, Thomas, if you're using that as an
So
example,
like,
you should have kept
wait.
saying.
So everyone should have been quiet and let Tom explain to Vade that he should have stopped using it.
He did.
But,
Tom told him right up to stop
yeah.
using it.
BB and him.
Yeah, he knows
you
not to. He
maggot.
knows not to use it.
I said it. BB said it. Tom said it.
I like how Thomas thought about it, and he thought to himself, hey, if he kept saying the N-word, then he must not have been told that he shouldn't do that.
Like, no, he knew. Everybody in here knows, like, that word is kind of off limits. So
It's pretty explicit in the terms of service.
Thomas, not only did he know, but in his explanation, like for like his response to one of the people saying that you used it like 3 times.
Yeah.
In his response to the person who told him not to use it.
Is it like a general rule now, or is it are we live or something?
He was looking for a way out. He wanted a way out.
And he needs people to be charitable to him. So
No. What happens is when he gets cornered, like he was cornered, then he needs to find a way out, but he can't just leave. So he has to like do something to get himself kicked out.
Suicide by mod.
I think him getting kicked makes him more
Suicide by
frustrated
mod.
than staying in here.
Like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? You sound like crazy people to think what Vade was doing there was suicide by mod.
Well, tell us why we're wrong then, Josh, since you're so fucking.
Vade is just dumb. He just was burning out.
He wasn't trying to get out of anything. Like,
no, he was embarrassed. He was trying to save face. He was trying to save face.
He was trolling you for fucking hours. You guys trying to save face.
correct.
He doesn't give a shit about what he says.
Josh is correct.
What is he correct about, BB?
He's just been trolling for fucking hours. Josh,
Yeah, but
he's
even
been
the
trolling
longest
for fucking hours.
Yeah, but even
So
the
are you saying
longest
he doesn't
troll.
believe these things?
Even the longest troll has.
No, it's not. It's not about believing it or not. That all he
No,
does
this is just a
come
common
here
fucking
and
tactic of these
talk
piece of
trash
shit
and
maggots
trash
to
on it. Here we
attribute
go.
God.
Round 10,000. Get ready. And I'm gonna let go of the
that
mic.
is the common fucking
Round
tactic of
10
these
billion.
maggots is to attribute dishonesty on
It
my
works
part
best
for my
as well if he
position.
slightly believes
No,
it.
they're not
That's
even
their
saying
thing.
you're being
Oh, Vade's a
dishonest.
troll.
They're not even saying you're
See,
being
Brenda?
dishonest. Wait, you gotta listen to what they're
There it is.
saying.
Do the laugh,
Putting a
guys.
record
Do
on
the
and just
little
putting the
laugh.
volume on.
Do the little
Just
laugh,
have to
guys.
let it play.
Do the
Do the
little
laugh,
laugh.
everybody.
They're
Everybody
not
do the
even
modus
saying
ponens
you're
chuckle.
being dishonest.
Do the modus ponens laugh, everyone.
Everyone guffaw.
It's the Tom on Box's laugh. God damn it!
They're not even
Oh,
saying
we're
you're
gonna
being
put a mute on it
dishonest,
for a
Vade.
moment.
They're just
They
saying.
always call me a
Josh
troll
was
when they
not
can't
wrong.
respond to my argument.
Josh is not.
Here
There
comes
it is.
the
There's the laugh.
I think the maggots
that
and the
fucking
do the laugh and
dishonest, fucking
I think that's
false,
all
forced
trolling.
fucking laugh that these fucking shitbags love to give. These
They're
fucking
like, we
pieces
can't
of
respond
shit.
nor
Wait, but
refute
what
his
do you don't think
arguments,
he's
but
just spurging out when he's doing that?
He's
It's fucking Seamus in stereo now. He got Vade on one side, Seamus on the other side. My fucking ears in the
These
middle. You
fucking
prick.
people are such pieces of shit. It's unreal.
Ah, fuck off, Vade.
Don't be so,
Go swallow
don't be so
busted glass
mad.
and then jerk off in game.
All of you are so weird.
I love
So
that
the
all of this
theory
shit
is
is on YouTube, man. Like anybody can just pull up Tom's channel and listen to you people and know that you are like the most asinine, inane pieces of fucking shit on the internet almost.
Well, you go to
Vade, we're
bed
not the
tonight.
one
You
disparaging
go to
brown
bed
people,
tonight
Vade.
fucking with that as
Not
your
a
comfort.
problem, Vade. Thank you so much.
You're
You're
the
welcome
most
to leave at any
wretched
time,
fucking
Vade.
group of people on
I
Discord.
don't think that you should be here. You're going to give yourself an aneurysm, and I don't think it's good for your health.
No.
Hey, it might get us some more views.
There's that faux concern that everybody likes to do. Let's act concerned for your benefit, but we're just asking you to leave.
No, I'm not acting. I'm not
Do the
acting.
laugh. Do the laugh.
I'm not laughing.
Do the laugh.
Do the laugh.
Do the laugh.
I can't
Everyone
laugh.
do the flop.
Laugh,
Fucking
Vade.
shithead.
Vade's been hurt.
Laugh, Vade.
Who hurt you, Vade? Who hurt you, man?
Show us on the doll. Where?
Why was I even fucking kicked from the server?
Because you said the N word.
Because you're a shithead.
Because you said the N word like
I didn't
6 times.
call anybody a nigger. I was talking
And
about
there you
the
go
word.
again. Come on, Vade.
Obviously didn't learn your lesson.
You're fucking
See you
incorrigible.
later. See you
Oh my
later.
god.
You're so dumb sometimes.
You're not allowed to use the word, Vade.
So, Michael, I got my discovery today. No fingerprints, no phone record.
So
And-
Thomas, do you think that nobody warned him that time?
And no camera.
Because he
on the
said
car
it
pulled
again,
in.
right? That means he must not have been warned.
Oh, that's fine, Joe. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if he thinks that his argument for why it's okay to say it trumps the rule to not say it. Yeah, he's a fucking idiot. Whatever.
His argument is that he has a black friend, so he can say it.
Well, I mean, I think his argument is that the well, I'm not even gonna run this around you guys. Never mind.
Shameless, do you want to spam the M word too, real quick?
But I agree with you. N-word should
He
be
thinks you
allowed.
can't examine the word's effect without being able to say it, which is ridiculous.
Tom, Tom, about because I just want to like presumably the ruling is in place just so the channel doesn't get shut down, right?
Yep.
Right. That's the only reason. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Ostensibly, that's the reason.
Like, but are we live currently?
It's all about the Benjamins now.
It is silly though, because everybody thinks the same thing when somebody says like the N word or something.
Yeah, it's the dumbest fucking thing in the world. Like, and with that we could say cunt, clunge, fucking spick, spook, whatever the fuck.
Wait, can we?
But I don't know. Like apparently only the N word is only the N word is.
I mean, racist words aren't necessarily the best to say in the first place.
So wait, what can we say and what can't we say? So in the general rules, where are the rules? Let me go fucking look at them. Wait, where are the rules?
Where are the rules?
Go read them.
Where are they?
Are you suggesting that we have
Search.
a thing in the side that says rules and have actual rules typed out?
No, that's stupid.
I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that's just a Discord problem, though, because there's like a broader social problem. Like there's been people that have lost multi-million-dollar jobs or contracts because they said the N-word in private. Like they just happened to be recorded saying it in a private conversation.
Poor things.
Well, they probably
you think people would be more on guard after that point.
But I feel like
it's not about being on guard. It's just about like how extreme some people have a reaction to a single utterance, right? That if you said it in private when you weren't expecting to be recorded, that there'd be that much economic fallout or social
So let's
fallout.
use an
That's
example
crazy.
that has nothing to do with the context of what we're talking about here. So let's go, oh, someone's lost their multi-million-dollar contract, as if that one example somehow overrides the principle.
Here.
No, I'm saying that there's a we're not evaluating this in a vacuum, right? So like this Discord example is in a social context where that kind of stuff is happening. So like I think it's normal for people to have a negative reaction and like want to change the status quo.
Because you can't say the N-word and other words that you want to say, because when this is open to people to be able to come into, they shouldn't have to listen to your fucking mouth because you're just a crass fucking Nazi.
Well, it's like the general principle, Molly. So like a 1,000 years ago or so, people said the same thing about like Druidism, right? Or like paganism. They'd say something like people talking about pagan beliefs or mentioning pagan gods has a negative effect on society and hurts people's feelings. And therefore we have to go cut down all the pagan trees and like ban pagan references.
You're trying to do is say, oh, the status quo is bad. I want to instill my own status quo. And that's good. You're not saying why your status quo is better. You're just saying it's the status quo that's bad. I want my status quo, but I'm not going to call it a status quo because that would mean I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The Nazi status quo is not fucking demonstrably better than what we have now.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm just making an appeal to people's, like, I think that most of us are natural liberals. Like, we come from a liberal society where speech is generally taken to be something that's, like, cherished. So I'm just appealing to people's general instincts or intuitions about the matter. You know, like trying to get people to think about it more concretely and personalize it, because anybody can just point at Vade and be like, oh, Vade said something obnoxious, let's ban Vade. But if you personalize it with an example that is important to you, like your religion or your ethnicity or whatever, then maybe you can empathize more.
I think intuition is exactly what the problem is here. I think if you actually fucking think about it, you'll realize that in order to fucking maintain peace and fucking harmony, there's some shit you shouldn't do in the public.
Are you sure it's that fucking?
Do you think that applies fairly to like the pagan example that I mentioned, or like is there any example where that doesn't apply?
Who decides?
The potential to do harm is what decides it.
Yeah, but like if I just said, like, let's just say we go back to like 1930s Germany, right? I'm just saying like the Jewish press is doing harm to people, therefore we should like restrict Jewish press. You would have to be committed to saying that that's appropriate action.
Your fucking basic premise is fucked.
It's an example.
How's it fucked?
It's an example, just to grant it for the sake.
No. You don't grant fucking lies just for fun.
Can you demonstrate?
Are you implying the Jewish press never harmed anyone, Gus?
Yes, I am fucking implying the
Then
Jewish
you're gonna
press
fucking
never
derail the
harmed.
whole goddamn conversation.
That's not the fucking point. All right?
Not your fucking point.
It's through little cracks that the fucking big problems seep in, okay? You ignore if your fucking boat is leaking and you ignore a fucking puddle at the bottom of the boat, eventually you're going to find yourself up to your neck in fucking water, wondering why you can't steer anymore.
Gus, you're getting sidetracked. The point isn't to say that the Jews did or didn't, right? That's irrelevant.
Well, then don't use that as an example.
I'm using that as an example.
Whoever is that sugar? Is that you fucking nattering away while I'm trying to talk to the adult?
That's Thomas.
I know that you have like a personal response to it, right? So I'm trying to engage
it's
you.
It's not my
I'm trying
personal
to get you
response.
attached to the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. So engage in a conversation that doesn't use what you fucking know is going to be a trigger.
Right. Okay. So think of any other example that's similar to that, like the pagan example. Do you think it was appropriate for the Christians to go into indigenous Europe and then ban a bunch of pagan references or holidays? Or do you think like the Native American example in Canada, where they tried to like...
it's a disanalogy. The fucking Native Americans never tried to wipe out entire fucking religions of people.
No, but their beliefs were considered harmful by the white people that came over, right?
I don't think you can really equate paganism to racism.
What do you mean?
Every statement
a lot
has
of
some
the
sort of
religious
context to
subjugation
it.
has been along ethnic lines.
Every statement has some sort of context to it. There's no sort of like abstract thing that you can say universally this is applicable to everything, because otherwise you probably would get the Nobel Prize for proving moral realism, right? So you can only do it in terms of context. So you can't use the N-word because historically there's a more recent association with the word. So if you go, oh, well, what about the pagans? Well, the pagans were being persecuted for not even being allowed to even just worship their pagan gods. It wasn't just that they weren't allowed to say the word pagan. So there's a completely disanalogous notion to how you can compare the two. Sure, if you strip away all the context, you can compare them. But then when you've stripped away all the context, there's no point for having it in the first place as a comparison.
Here.
We're just talking about what kind of principles people should have and apply. So we're talking about should people be censored, generally speaking, if it serves the greater good. And typically, like the liberal perspective has been that that should be the case, but only in like extreme situations where like it's about to cause imminent physical harm to people, like yelling fire in a crowded theater and stuff like that.
Which is not illegal.
Right. So if we took that to be the case, then like saying the N-word might be considered obnoxious, but like it wouldn't be considered something worthy of being censored, as opposed to. But I'm just saying, like, if you think that people should be censored for anything they say that is harmful, wouldn't that also necessarily apply to cases like when the indigenous peoples had their religion censored or like their activities censored and their saying censored because the white people that came in thought it was harmful?
Well, the problem is, again, and you're fucking walking as far away from the point as possible. The reason that people don't let Nazis say whatever the fuck they want and do whatever the fuck they want is because the last time we did it, we ended up in a world fucking war.
It's not about Nazis. You don't have to be a Nazi to say the N-word.
With you,
right?
Ken,
Like,
it's always about Nazis.
The entire regional southern U.S. has used the N-word really flippantly, and they're like not all Nazis, right? So it's
We
has
also had a war
with
them, right? So your point is actually worse if you bring them up.
Yeah, but we also had wars to subjugate native people, and the Romans had wars to subjugate indigenous European people. Like, how is that a
Hey,
point?
Gus, as Iron would say, all the Nazis died in 1945.
Well, yeah,
This
well,
whole thing's
no.
nonsense anyway. You're saying just because it happened in the past, we should be allowed to do it now. I mean, that's silly. Sure.
Hey, Port, your microphone is like you're eating it. Can you get closer to it?
I do beg your pardon.
Yeah, I'm drawing the contradiction, right? Like most of these people would say that those past events were negative, but they're saying that the contemporary event is not negative. I'm just trying to understand why there's a difference between the two.
Because the Druids didn't go to the Jews and try to kill them all.
Yeah, because one of them happened in like feudalist Europe, and the other one happened within living memory.
Okay, well then pick another group.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it.
When the fucking Romans showed up and showed that they could become peaceable, because I think people think that the Roman conquest of the fucking pagan and Pictish peoples was this sort of one long push, and it wasn't. It was a series of pushes, and in between that series of pushes, there was a thing where the Romans actually got along with the fucking people, right? So
yeah, that's true for every
and when they offered these pagans Roman citizenship, they did not try to stomp out their gods. All they said was, is that in your shrines, we require that you put a couple of our gods as well as yours. And the ones that said, okay, they got along just fine. The ones that said, no, they got to put the sword, but that's another matter.
Actually, the Romans had a history and thing of conquering other countries and picking up their gods.
Yeah, you're talking about
belief systems and whatnot.
Pre-Christian Romans, right? So like that's the pagan Romans. Obviously, the pagan Romans had a more
I'm sorry,
well-established relationship with other
together a
pagans.
bunch of things that are roughly similar does not change the fact that there are some key particular situations where you have to be an adult and you have to realize that one rule isn't going to fit everything. And you have to modify the rule.
You just don't believe
in
principles.
You have to modify the rule. You have to modify the rule to fit the specific. I hope I can hear everything you're doing.
Right,
so you have to modify the
rule. Just being arbitrary, I guess.
No, it's not arbitrary. It's not. You act as though it's like a mad King fucking George. Well,
effectively, that's what it is.
The reason we don't let Nazis say what they want is because they've proved that it leads to Jews in ovens.
You don't have to take it back to that. That's not the point. I'm just saying that if you don't